had Clee played like Maxx,
Everybody's
and Maxx
happy.
played like Clee.
Yeah, you basically got your guy. If you picked Maxx Crosby at 4, everybody's like, great pick. And
Right.
if you pick Clee in the 4th round, so you ended up netting out with a top 5 pick and a 4th rounder. All right, so special guest this morning. It is draft week. One of my favorite dudes, somebody I've known a long time, somebody who me and my pops have a rich history together. Mike Mayock joins me. Mike, how you doing, man?
You know what, Chris? I was thinking this morning about this podcast, and I was thinking of kind of the history of our families,
Yeah.
right? And me and your dad go back when he was my recruit at Boston College.
Yeah.
And then we were teammates in the blue-gray game. And I'll never forget, it was the night before your draft.
Yeah.
New York City.
Mm-hmm.
You had a big party at a restaurant.
Yep.
And you guys invited me, and I brought my daughter,
Yep.
who was like a 21-year-old college student.
Yep.
And I didn't know you were going to have like the whole Virginia football team there.
Yeah, I brought some friends.
And I walk in with my college-age daughter. I'm like, oh, shit, really? I felt like I walked my daughter into the Lions Den.
Lions Den, yeah. Don't worry, none of those guys have game.
Well, one of them kept coming. Like, I thought that between me and your dad, we would kind of intimidate everybody,
Yeah, uh-huh.
And your dad was great. A couple guys were coming up to the table, and your dad was pushing them away.
Yeah.
And this one dude kept coming back. And then he
kind
of got my daughter away when Howie and I were talking about something else, and he invites her on the bus.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah.
Was he a skill guy or a big guy?
He was cocky. I don't remember.
He was a skill guy. He's probably a skill guy.
Probably.
I think I know who it is, but I don't want to dox anybody on this.
And my daughter's like, Dad, they seem like really nice guys. Can I go on the bus? And I was like, hell no. Are you shitting me?
I was kicked off that bus too that night. I told this story to somebody recently. Dad called me at 1 a.m. and was like, time for you to go home. He's like, you're about to make more money than you know what to do with in about 12 hours or whatever it was. Could you just get off the fucking bus and go home? Don't mess this up. So that's a precarious night.
Yeah, that bus was on a trip to nowhere good. And
nowhere good.
My daughter didn't need to be on it, and at a certain point, you didn't need to be on it.
I didn't need to be on it. Yeah. So Mike, tell me what my dad was like when he was younger.
Oh man, I could tell you some stories, but my introduction to your dad was he was a 16-year-old high school senior. So think about that. Most high school seniors today are 18 or 19.
Yeah.
Your dad was 16.
Yeah.
I was a freshman at Boston College, and was I 17 or 18? I guess I had just turned 18. And every weekend we got recruits, and my roommate Danny Conway and I, we just kind of, I think you got $20 for the recruit. And we used to pool our $20, so we had 40 and a couple other guys in the dorm and buy as many beers as you could buy for that amount of money. Mm-hmm. And then the recruits would come rolling in, and I had your dad. Mm-hmm. And we used to play these drinking games, Cardinal Puff and all these different games, and your dad was not a big drinker, never has been a big drinker.
Still not a big drinker, no.
Right. And here's this, great-looking Adonis. He was skinny. Yeah. The perception you have now is Arnold Schwarzenegger, right?
Yeah, uh-huh.
He was skinny, but you could tell he was going to fill out the big hands, the shoulders like this wide. Mm-hmm. He was going to fill out. And we loved him. And it's hard. You get so many recruits, it's hard to remember any of them, But your dad was not a drinker, and he tried to hang in and play a drinking game. And he ended up puking.
That's good.
And I'll never forget it. He looked around the table, and with the poise that he shows today on Fox, he looked around the table. He said, "Gentlemen, I'm going to have to puke. I'll be right back." And he stood up and he basically ran to the communal shower in our dorm, puked his guts out, came back in, and started to play the game again.
Oh,
and
good.
At that point, he became a cult hero.
Okay, good. So this is because he had told me, listen, I didn't go to BC because they wanted me to be a guard, but maybe it was alcohol poisoning.
It could have been that. And the other story I heard, which maybe you can fill in with the family, it's kind of, I don't know if they wanted him to play guard or not, but you know where your dad grew up, and it was in the midst of all the busing crisis, for racism in in Boston, and I think his grandma took him out in the burbs. His last year or two in high school, right? Mm-hmm. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, got him out of Charlestown.
Yeah, and I think, and again, you got to confirm it with Pops, but part of what I remember is that the family didn't want him in the Boston area for college because there was too much going on from Charlestown and all that kind of shit.
Yeah.
And I think initially he verbally agreed to go to BC, but obviously ended up at Villanova. And I always understood it was because the family was trying to get him to a, quote, safe place.
Yeah. I think that definitely had something to do with it. You know, Charlestown was rough. Yep. And, you know, him getting out of the city was like, it was almost like an emergency with his family situation and with everything going on. So, yeah, he could have been a BC Eagle. You guys could have been teammates, but you've remained close to this day. And I know when I texted him last night that you were coming on the show, he was hyped. And he told me to prompt you for a couple stories. But how you miss it? Are you missing things, man? Like, this is your first draft. When we talked the other day, you were like, I was like, I want you to come on. You were like, I'd love to come on. I'm not really keeping up with the draft right now, so I'm not going to be able to be my normal Mike Mayock, you know, telling me who's got the bubble butts and who's got the ankle flexion. But like in general, are you missing the process of TV or being a GM and being in the war room this time of year?
Yeah, you know, Chris, it's a great question. When I got fired, it was January after the 21 season. We had just lost to the Bengals in the playoffs.
Yep.
So we're a playoff team, and I think me and Bisaccia, who, to me, it's criminal that he's not a head coach in the NFL. It's friggin' criminal. That's a different topic. Yeah. But he and I were kind of excited. We're coming off a 10-7 season. We had the ball on 9-yard line going in against the Bengals with 4 shots in 35 seconds to tie the game and get in overtime. Obviously, we didn't get it done. They went to the Super Bowl, and Rich and I get fired.
Yeah.
So we were coming off a situation, Chris, and you've been through good teams and bad teams because I remember who drafted you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I do too.
We inherited a 4-win team, and 3 years later we're 10 in the playoffs. So I think Rich and I felt like we had a good young nucleus to build from. We were a playoff team, and we felt like we were positioned, you know, with Derek Carr and a veteran quarterback to kind of take the next step. So there was some energy and excitement around that team and that program and in that building. Guys like Maxx Crosby, who I think Maxx Crosby is one of the best people I've ever met in my life.
Guy's amazing.
So that's my headspace when I got fired, was kind of fired up about where this thing could go. And then when I got fired, it was kind of like, wow, what's next? What was I, 63 years old? This is a job that takes no prisoners. Mm-hmm. It's like 7 days a week. It's 15 hours a day. You don't get a day off. Even when you do have a day off, you don't have a day off. Mm-hmm. I looked like shit. I felt like shit. I wasn't working out enough.
Yeah.
And so what was hard for me, and I'll tell you where my wife was really good, is she was just like, hey, we're out in Vegas. We got a lease on a house. We're East Coast people. Here we are out in the West Coast. Let's take advantage of it before we go home. So we flew to Hawaii, right? We went to Napa Valley. We did some shit that I've never done to kind of just have some downtime and spend some time with my wife.
Yeah.
And that was kind of cool, Chris.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not really used to that or good at that. And then when we came back to Philly, a lot of we're down the Jersey Shore, which is my favorite place in the world. And
what's the beach? What's the beach for Mike Mayock?
Yeah, we're in Ocean City, New Jersey.
Yep, I just wanted people to know. Yeah, that's the best beach town. It's a dry town.
What's that?
But it's a dry town, but you can bring your own beer.
It's a dry town because you can't buy alcohol in the town, but people bring so much liquor across the bridge you could almost sink the island.
Yeah, exactly. I love the place. I love the place. Just for the record.
Well, you married a Jersey girl, right?
Yep, and an Ocean City gal.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know. So, Chris, that's already too long an answer, but for the last year, I did some games for Westwood One Radio, which I had a blast. I'm a coach's son. I think I'm always going to have to kind of be involved in football somehow. Yeah. And it's probably not back in a building, but if I'm doing television or radio games and I get a chance to be around it, watch film, more than anything, Chris, and I think you get it, more than anything, I miss the people.
Yeah.
The people in the friggin' building are the glue and what brings you back every morning.
Yeah. So this time of year, as a GM, when you wore that hat, what's today like? I mean, what's the thing about today that people don't realize?
Man, for me, it was kind of like the haze in the barn. You stacked the board, probably finalized the board last weekend. You got your top coaches and scouts with you over the weekend, stacking the board, getting yourself where you want to be. And for me, yesterday and today was about trying to clear headspace and try and get a couple workouts in, try and get a couple good nights sleep in, because mentally you got to be on top of your game, moving up, moving down. What are you doing on your draft board? And I think, ironically, what helped me a little bit with the draft board was my time at NFL Network.
Right.
Because you kind of had to wear the hat of all 32 GMs.
Yes.
And I did it for 18 years.
Yeah.
And different GMs had different roadmaps to what they like to do. So I felt like I had a pretty good idea of what type player typically goes in certain spots.
Yeah.
And which GMs are open to moving up and back and which aren't.
Yeah.
So I had a lot of fun. What I found, Chris, and I didn't know heading into it, I had a lot of fun draft weekend just because there's so much pressure. And you get a phone call or you make a phone call and you're on the clock and that deal is going to get done or not get done in the next 2 minutes.
Yeah.
It's the ultimate poker game, right? Yeah. It's a charge. And if you're a personnel guy, not a coach, if you're on the personnel side, draft weekend is kind of your Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
And I've taken a lot of heat about some of the first round picks, and that's cool. I get it. But I love draft weekend every year.
Yeah, yeah. How much? I mean, you definitely had some really good picks, and then obviously every GM has ones that they're like, yeah, I want that one back. What's the division of labor with you and say Jon when he was there, as far as making certain picks? Like, do you guys split it? Do you guys negotiate? Is there like a trump card that Jon can put down because he's the head coach and just the nature of how he was, or how does that work?
Well, every team's different.
Yeah.
And the dynamic in the building is different.
Yeah.
Most teams, the GM will have, quote, final say.
Yeah.
And the main reason for that, Chris, is a head coach, most head coaches can't see past Sunday.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about next Sunday, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they have to win. It's not, they have to win now or they get fired.
Mm-hmm.
And justifiably, that's their attitude. That's what it should be. I want to friggin' win now.
Yeah.
GM's job is a little bit more of a big picture situation, especially when you filter in salary cap and the best use of your money. Every team's owner has a different cash position in the world, and that affects how you manage your cap. And like to give you an example, one of the things John and I fought on the most is that we had a certain way we had to handle our salary cap because Mark Davis, prior to getting to Vegas, didn't have a whole lot of ready available cash.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
if you're the Rams, and you want to go out and trade draft picks and go get a bunch of free agents, the way you can do that, to oversimplify, is you can give a guy you can give Chris Long $30 million guaranteed.
Oh, sounds good.
Dude, that would have been a pay cut for you.
Yeah.
I didn't want to hear that.
When I was young.
Yeah, I remember those days. But my point is, you can make the $30 million and spread it out over 5 years if you call it a signing bonus.
Yes.
So it only hits your cap $6 million a year.
Yeah.
We couldn't do that. We didn't have signing bonus money like that.
Yeah.
So we had to do our guaranteed dollars in our guaranteed money was in the annual contract for the player, not bonus.
Yep.
And because of that, we couldn't go out and spend and prorate like other teams. And John used to go crazy. Like the Rams would pick up a player or somebody. How the fuck could they do that? Like he would go friggin' nuts.
Yeah.
And it was every week of every year. And I'd be like, John, that's what it is. It's a different structure. And to his credit, he just wanted good players, like every other head coach. So, the dynamic with John and I mean, most buildings, it's GM has last say. Our building, it was John had last say. And that's okay. We butted heads, which I think is healthy. Yeah. I think it's a good dynamic when you're arguing for the betterment of your team. Yeah. But at the end of the day, it's, I could lose some of those battles.
Yeah, looking back at some of the players that you drafted, I mean, like, Maxx Crosby, especially where you got him, incredible. Hunter Renfrow, Josh Jacobs, guys like that. I know Leatherwood was probably more of a Gruden guy, but I think it's an interesting question I wanted to ask you is, because I don't hear GMs do it a lot, is like, hey, listen, when you miss on a guy, it happens. It's fucking hard. It's like, look at everybody's mock draft every year. If you think you can do it, try that on for size. But like, a Farrell or something, when you look back at that, and I don't want to necessarily single him out, but do you know pretty quickly that you're like, damn, you know what? He's not the player I was hoping he was. Like, at what point in camp? Because, as players, we can tell kind of quickly. We see the ceiling, we see some of the deficiencies, maybe some of the incompatibilities that it would have been hard to project coming from college to the pros. How quickly do you know that? And then when you go back and look at the process, are you able to pinpoint where you maybe were a little bit off?
Yeah. A couple days after I get fired, I talked to Bill Polian. Yeah. Who's a Hall of Fame GM. And he got fired in his career, and
everybody gets fired in football.
Pretty much. I just wanted to ask him some advice how to deal with it, and I filled up a notebook with his advice. And one of the things he said is, you need to take a step back and write down everything you did for 3 years, everything you did well, everything you did poorly, and you need to learn from that. And you got to be honest with yourself, which is kind of where you're coming from here. Yeah. The whole Klee thing, Klee was my guy. The coaching staff really wanted a defensive lineman. Yep. We were picking number 4 that year in 2019. Yep. And I knew the first 3 picks were going to be Kyler Murray 1, Bosa 2 to San Francisco, and Quinnen Williams 3 to the Jets. And then 4 Chris, I'm telling you, the morning of the first round, I called John Lynch and tried to move up to 2.
That would have made it easier.
Well, I mean,
Right?
Bosa.
Yeah.
It's funny because You probably saw Steve Keim the other day was on a show and was talking about Bosa being chirping in the building. Bosa was great. We all loved him, and he told me a variation of what he told Keim. He was leaving our building after the 30 visit, and I said, Nick, we're picking 4. You're not going to be there. He said, well, then you need to move the fuck up, don't you?
I like that.
And I loved him. He was a little bit chirpy and a little bit cocky, but in a good way.
Yeah.
And we did. We tried to move up to 2 and didn't get him. We tried to move up to 3 to get Quinn and Williams, and Jets said no. I tried to trade down. Fans always say, well, just move down. Well, you need a friggin' partner.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so we tried to trade down with everybody, and nobody wanted to come up to 4. Yeah. And I kind of told John the day before the draft that was what was going to happen. We're going to be sitting at 4, not being able to move. Here was my take on Klee, Chris, and obviously I was wrong. I was hoping, I think I told you this once, but I'm not sure. I was hoping that Klee Farrell could become Chris Long.
Right. Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah, you did mention that, yeah.
I even, after his first or second year, I even put together a Chris Long clip. I went back in the tape, and I found your first 2 years.
Yeah.
And I want to say your first 2 years, you probably had a total of 7, 8, 9 sacks.
Yeah, it was like 9 or 10, yeah.
Okay. Klee had, I think, 4.5 the first year and 2 the second year.
Yep.
And I put a Chris Long reel together.
Yeah.
And I brought Klee in my office, and I was just like, Klee, this was my comp for you.
Yeah.
And I want you to see a couple things here. I want you to see, number one, that this is a guy that didn't come in the league and have 14 sacks year 1.
Right. Yeah.
He had like 4 year 1.
Yeah.
Okay, you had 4 year 1.
Yep.
Okay. I think Chris's third year you had 8 or 9, and then you popped. Like your 4th and 5th year, you were double-digit guy.
Double digits,
right?
Yep.
So my point to Klee was, here's a guy that outworked people. His hand use was off the charts. Every year, you could see a different guy on tape.
Right.
Which is a testament to you.
Yeah.
Okay? And what I was trying to show Klee, because I think he was getting frustrated with the weight of being the number 4 overall pick.
It's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I wanted him to see that there was a clear path to 70 or 80 sacks, 2 Super Bowls, Pro Bowls. I wanted him to see, even though he was the 4th overall pick, here's the 2nd overall pick who didn't jump out of the gate killing it as far as production numbers.
Numbers,
right?
Yeah, which is ultimately what the people at home are going to weigh you on.
Right. And I think he was feeling that shit heavy.
Yeah,
really
no
heavy.
Yeah.
And so my message to him was, look, and he was a hard worker, tough kid, smart. My thought process on the way in, Chris, flawed as it is, was that if we're kind of stuck at 4 and we want a defensive lineman, and we had looked real hard at Josh Allen, who we liked a lot, who's become a good player for Jacksonville.
Yeah.
The defensive tackle from Buffalo.
Not Marcel.
No.
Oliver.
The little quick guy.
Oliver. Yeah, I got
Oliver.
Ed Oliver, yeah.
Yeah, they were the other 2 guys that were in the conversation. And I think they went 7 and 9 to Jacksonville and Buffalo. So they were kind of the 3 guys in the conversation.
Yeah.
And I kind of said to John the night before, look, if we get stuck tomorrow, my gut tells me that Klee is the kind of kid, tough, physical, work ethic, that we want to show who our type of guy is. If we're going to make any mistakes, let's make them with him.
Culture.
Okay?
Yeah.
And let's hit a solid double and not worry about a home run. And we're going to take a ton of shit, because you probably could have gotten him at 24 instead of 4.
Yeah.
Okay? But let's understand that going in, and let's agree that he's our kind of guy and we're going to build with him.
Yeah.
And obviously, I love Klee, and I'll defend Klee the person until I die.
Yeah.
But obviously, to this point in his career, he hasn't been that guy.
Yeah. Well, it's a hard thing. I mean, like so many little physical evaluations that seem like these are little things, but then when you get up to the next level, whether it's like arm length or like a little bit of ankle flexion or a little bit of hip mobility or leverage, like it just doesn't project the same. And I think defensive end's one of the toughest positions. Pass rush is a really tough position to and then you have the issue like this year. I know you're not paying attention, but the kid from Texas Tech is like this avatar of a guy, right? He's got all this ability, and then you've got Anderson at Bama, who's more polished, and you kind of have to make that decision. It's like, do you take the upside or you take the quote unquote safe pick? And that's a tough deal. And then that year in the draft, what probably made it even harder for Klee was Maxx Crosby's year, wasn't it?
Chris, it's interesting because had Klee played like Maxx,
everybody's happy.
Maxx played like Klee.
Yeah, you basically got your guy. If you picked Maxx Crosby at 4, everybody's like, great pick.
Right.
And if you pick Klee in the 4th round, so you ended up netting out with a top 5 pick and a 4th rounder.
It's kind of, I sit back and kind of giggle because we had 5 Pro Bowlers come out of that draft.
Yeah.
The 2019 draft. People are killing us because of the first round picks, and I get it.
Yeah.
Right? But if if you had Josh and Klee played like Maxx, people would be going, oh, what a great – they got Hunter Renfrow and A.J. Cole's a Pro Bowl punter and, Anyway.
No, but Maxx is one of my favorites. And I always saw Jared Allen because of his length and the way he can kind of post people and get, 3-quarter horizontal and just, the hand activity, the whole thing, like – do you beam with pride watching that guy, and do you see Jared, or what makes him so good, and what did you see in your evaluation that made you take him?
We were at Max's wedding about 3 weeks ago, a month ago, and we had a blast, and I danced my ass off.
That's what I heard. I heard you did some dancing.
I went off. I was having some fun because.
Are you a solo dancer, or are you like, do you clear the dance floor for yourself, or do you play well with others?
My era, you used to have a line, from that old dance show, and they would play some kind of funk, and you had to go down the line by yourself.
I like that. That's where I thrive.
I kill it there. Just kill it. Because you and I are going to have to do
solo dancers. Solo dancers. All right, so you're at Max's wedding. You got a couple pops in you. You're dancing.
We had a blast. And it's just
there.
I know it's a bad look for like a 64-year-old white dude. I
no,
get
it's not.
that.
No, it's not. Everybody loves it.
So Maxx, to me, is one of the most special people I've ever met, to the point where that's why I reached out to your dad when Maxx was a rookie, and I wanted Maxx and Howie to start a conversation because I thought Maxx was so damn special that hearing from a Hall of Fame guy that was a defensive lineman and could kind of, I don't want to say mentor because that puts responsibilities on your dad. But the point is, they kind of connected and clicked.
Yeah.
And I think that if he can, what his off the field stuff was. Even coming out of college, we knew there was a potential for a drinking problem.
Yeah.
We knew there was some stuff we were going to have to probably face and manage.
Yeah.
And to Max's credit, he went to rehab. I can say all this because he went public.
Yeah,
with
he's talked about it. Yeah.
And I can't tell you how many times a guy walked in my office and closed the door, and we just talked about life.
Yeah.
Not football. He's got some incredible goals in his football life. I mean, he knows where he wants to go.
Yeah.
And the shit he does as far as a leader, I mean, that's his team. I mean, I remember his second or third year, we're in Vegas, and you know how hot it is in Vegas, so you got to practice at like 7:30 in the morning in training camp.
Yeah.
You're off the field around 9:30 or 10 because it's 100 degrees.
Yeah, you got to get out.
And we'd get done, and John would call everybody up and release everybody, and Max would jog down to the end zone and start running gassers.
Yeah. And
you're going, holy, really? He's not saying a word to anybody. He's just jogging down the end of the field, and he's running gassers. Yeah. And then the next thing you know, Yannick Ngakwe's down there with him.
Yep.
And then the whole defensive line's down there. And he hasn't said a word to anybody. And it's just leadership. He's innately a leader. He doesn't care if you're black, white, male, female. He just wants you all in. Right? And Chris, you had some of that. I used to watch you at practice with the Eagles. Yeah. And you were a unifier. You brought people together. And I thought I loved watching you around your teammates. And Max is the same way.
Yeah, I love the kid, man. The sky's the limit for him. And then, Hunter Renfrow is one of my favorite guys to watch outside because his footwork, it's just, I mean, as a pass rusher, there's some parallel between what they do and what we do sometimes. And I really appreciate the way this guy plays. What was the process like in identifying him as a guy you wanted in the building, and what do you think makes him so good?
Yeah, John and I had some interesting conversations about Renfrow. And to John's credit, when we got him into camp as a fifth-round pick, and the way we got Hunter was we traded down 2 or 3 times in the fourth round. We picked up an extra couple picks, which included, I think it was a pick that we got us Foster Moreau in the fourth.
Yep.
And then the extra 5 allowed us to trade back up and get Hunter Renfrow. And the first day of training camp, his first man-to-man drill, as a defensive end, you couldn't wait for your first one-on-one drill with a tackle, right? As a rookie, you had to win that, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So Hunter gets into his first one-on-one, first day of training camp, and our starting nickel, LaMarcus Joyner, 7 years in the league.
LaMarcus. Yeah, I played with him.
LaMarcus jumps in right as soon as he saw Hunter jump up in the slot. Yeah. He went and found him, right? And Hunter couldn't get off the line of scrimmage. And John looks at me like, really? Next day, same shit. Every time Hunter got up for one-on-one, LaMarcus jumped in his face and shit on him.
His long-ass arms.
He got his hands on him and just kind of threw him down. And everybody's hooting and hollering. And John's looking at me like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Like, really? Did we just waste a draft pick on a guy that can catch the ball but can't separate?
Yeah.
I was like, give him time, John. This is a guy that's going to learn shit, nuances that his capacity to learn and change his game based on the way he's being covered was unbelievable to me at Clemson.
Yeah.
So we get about a week in, and I'm starting to panic a little bit too because he's getting his ass handed to him.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, he gets out there against LaMarcus and shreds him. Yeah. Just different kind of move, different kind of hand usage, shreds him, bang. So you know what happens. The whole group starts hooting at LaMarcus, giving him shit. And he's pissed off, and he can't wait to get in and cover the next time. So the whole team is now watching the next one. And they're hooting and hollering and screaming, and everybody's watching this way. And John and I are standing next to each other. Hunter shreds him again. Different move, same result. And the place went nuts. And John kind of hits me and goes, hey, maybe we got something. And
yeah, you had some.
And, and Hunter's the guy, Chris, that after every practice grabbed Derek Carr. And I think Hunter invented some red zone moves that everybody else is trying to replicate. Yeah. Everybody had a little pivot. He did the fake pivot wheel.
Yeah,
that was shit that he was just working on And he's talking to the defensive backs like, if I do this, what's your thought process?
Mm-hmm.
What happens if I do this and then that? And
Yeah.
he scored several touchdowns in the 21 season running red zone man-to-man routes that just were shit he made up on the practice field with Derek
Wow.
Carr and worked on it every freaking day.
He looks good doing it. You mentioned Derek. How do you feel about the handling of his situation there towards the end? Like, I know he wasn't real happy with it. He's in New Orleans now. Do you think he's going to have success there? And what was it like kind of being in the building with him?
Yeah, that's a really intriguing question. So I thought Jon Gruden and our offense coordinator, Greg Olson, did an amazing job with Derek Carr. And every year that I was there, the 3 years, I thought Derek got better and better and better, which is a testament both to Derek and to the coaching staff.
Yeah.
Because part of being a great coach is, number one, being a teacher individually. Can I make Chris Long better?
Yeah.
Number two is, to be a great coach, is what's the fit? Okay, how do I fit Chris into my defense, or how do I fit Derek into my? Let's take advantage of what they do well, right? So I thought John and Ole did an amazing job, and by the end of the third year, by the end of the 21 season, I felt like whether you like Derek Carr or not, he was a top 12 quarterback in the league.
Yeah.
And if you loved him, maybe he was 7, 8, 9, and if you hated him, maybe he was 11, 12, 13, whatever. But I thought that Derek Carr was a top 12 quarterback. I took the phone calls for people trying to trade for Derek Carr. And he was worth more than a first-round draft pick.
Anybody interesting try to trade for him that we don't know about?
Well, you don't know about any of them because I don't talk.
He's the mafia.
Yeah, nice try.
That's good.
But I took the phone call, so I knew what his value was at the end of the 21 season.
Yeah.
Okay? So we get fired, we go into 22, and I have no idea what went on or didn't go on in that building. All I know is that he was no longer a consensus top 12 quarterback, and they benched him.
Yeah.
And then they moved on from him because they gave him a no trade clause.
Yeah.
So Derek kind of had at that point, he had the upper hand there, and I thought Derek played it
big time.
big time, and he played it the right way.
Yeah.
And so the Raiders ended up with nothing. And again, I'm not giving shit to the Raiders people, and I'm not giving shit to Derek because I wasn't in the building.
Yeah.
I can only tell you what I saw my 3 years in the building, and I thought John and Ole did a great job. They put him in a position to win, and I thought he got better every year.
Yeah, he was. I think he was underappreciated in his tenure there. I think a lot of people, it's so polarizing sometimes, a franchise quarterback, what the fan base thinks of him, especially if they're not like bona fide top five. I thought quarterbacks don't grow on trees. That guy's pretty good. And then the other guy that you've mentioned already in this pod, and I think you had mentioned this separately, was Rich Bisaccia, who you loved, and I could tell. And as a player, I thought, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But they always do with these interim head coaches because they got a big idea. You wanted him back, and that maybe factored into kind of the way things ended there.
Look, I think Richie, after Gruden got let go, I think Richie had 12 games left in the season, and we went 7-5, and we won the last 4 games. We were 6-7, and we won 4 in a row, Chris, to get into the and we were the number 5 seed in the AFC. Okay, I thought he did an amazing job galvanizing a team, and he and I kind of believe in the same things, so there was unification between front office and coaching staff. But the beauty, and I think you will get this, when the players truly believe in a coach, it's freaking awesome.
Yep.
And the thing about Rich is it's genuine. whether he was the special teams coach or the head coach, he could motherfuck you for 2.5 hours on the practice field, like very few people can.
Yeah,
Richie can get after your ass.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
After every practice, like I would go down to see him about something. Again, special teams coach or head coach. I'd run down because I had to talk to him about something. There would always be 8 or 10 players in his office, and they weren't talking about football. They were talking about their girlfriends, their wives, how to be a better man, a better parent, husband, all the women around. I love my wife. I mean, there aren't that many guys, and I'm sure there were some in your lifetime that could influence you and whose opinions you respected and trusted, right?
Yeah.
These guys went to the wall for that motherfucker. They went to the wall for Rich, and they believed in him. And to me, GM hat on, personal feelings aside, I felt like he should have been the head coach. I felt like he had a 12-week tryout under the most duress anybody could ever have.
Yeah.
Coming in and stepping in like he had to. And I thought he showed us who he was. I thought the players bought in, and I thought that he should have been the next coach of the Raiders. And to take it a step further, the fact that he's not a head coach somewhere in the NFL after what he's done, and there's a whole thing about special teams coaches. They're not, owners don't want to hire special teams coaches.
Yeah, it's weird. Even though they touch every corner of the locker room, like they're used to coaching every man on the roster, which is a real positive to me.
You get it. You've been in the locker room a lot of years, and Richie's coaching offensive players, defensive players. The other thing people don't understand is special teams coaches are typically great situational coaches because everything pivots around the kick game. What are we doing on fourth down? Are we kicking a field goal? Are we punting? Are we going for it? If we don't, so Richie was tremendous, I thought, in situational football, and we practiced it hard, and he got after it. So, I'm frustrated for Rich Bisaccia that here's a guy that's 60 or 61, whatever, who's more than earned the opportunity and hasn't gotten it.
So take me through this before I want to ask you a couple draft questions about, just the processes, but take me through this with Rich and that experience at the end of that Chargers game. Where are you watching that game? You're up in the box, whatever. And with the game in the balance, you don't know what the hell's going on. Who's playing for a tie? Who's playing for a win? How did that unfold in real time for you?
You got to understand, outside of playing, which is the best.
Yeah.
the next best is to be in the building as part of a team. And every friggin' game, I'm a little bit of a control freak.
Yeah.
You can ask my wife, you can ask my kids. Sitting up in a box is hard for me.
Yeah.
Because I can't control anything.
Yeah.
And I will sit there, I'm taking notes for 3 hours because I can't do anything about it. But you're so nervous that you basically puke in your mouth about 10 times a game.
Yeah.
You do.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, and that's the beauty of it is you can't replicate that selling commercial real estate, which I did for 18 years.
I know. I heard that. I didn't even know that.
Right? So that Charger game, I've never felt anything like that in my friggin' life. So if we tie or win, we're in.
Yeah.
Right? But different ramifications as to who we would play.
Yeah.
If we tied, I think we're going to Kansas City.
Yeah.
If we win, we're probably going to Cincinnati.
Yeah.
Right? So in the back of my mind is, number one, obviously, I just want to be in.
Yes.
Number two, I'd rather go to Cincinnati.
Yeah, because that was the whole – was that the year that y'all stomped on – I blame it on Will Compton when y'all stomped on the fucking logo there. I know it wasn't Will. I think it was Unique. But was that the year that y'all stomped on the logo at Arrowhead?
That was really –
Oh, it was after. Okay, it was the year after, I think.
Well,
either way, I'm not trying to go to Arrowhead after that whole thing.
Right. The year before, we did a lap around Arrowhead after we beat them in Arrowhead. We did a lap in the
A
buses,
lap. Yeah, in the buses.
beeping the horn, and I'm like, oh, really? Is this what
you cooler heads here.
I'm going, really?
How does that directive get put? Like, is it John being like, "Hey, bus drivers, take them for a lap"? Like, is that what it is? Because he's the guy who can control the fleet of Quicks buses.
Yeah, John's sitting right up there in that first seat, telling him to take a lap.
That's not you.
And you gotta love John for it, because if John's gonna do it, he's gonna do it loud. He wasn't sneaking. He wasn't sneaking around the stadium.
No, they were honking the horn.
He was telling the guy to beep the horn and screaming and yelling, and so we left there making noise.
Yeah. And
I'm sitting there going, "This is really gonna come back and bite us."
Oh shit! They're in our division. I forgot. Yeah.
We gotta play. So Will Compton is another funny story, just because.
Tell me a Will Compton story. Yes.
I had to cut Will like 3 times in 2 weeks.
Was he cool about it each time?
He was so awesome. And he and Bisaccia love each other.
Yeah.
And like we were getting ready to play Cincinnati in the playoff game, I think it was, and I had to cut him again. I needed a spot, right?
I'm not laughing.
He comes into my office. He's like, "Really? We gonna do this again?" And he's like, and I'm trying to tell him why. And my heart, I've been cut so many times. My heart goes out to him, and I'm bleeding, telling him why. And he's like, "Mike, I was just like, if we beat the Bengals, I think we're gonna play in Nashville next week. My hometown. That's what I really want to go back and play." And I'm like, "Oh shit." I'm like, "Oh man."
No, Will. Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah, it's true. You could ask him about it. I mean,
he was pushing for a hometown deal.
Yeah, and I don't blame him. I was like,
no,
shit,
I don't blame him.
I apologize to him 100 times.
No, well, Will's the man. Will's the man.
Yeah.
But the tie thing, you guys were like looking at Kansas City and Cincy, right?
So anyway, that was the year before.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, the 21 thing, the tie, yeah. So I'm up in the booth shitting myself, and we should win this game going away. We were up by about 3 touchdowns, I think, in the third quarter.
I remember.
And Justin Herbert just starts to go off. They converted, I want to say, a 4th and 21, and they throw a 23-yard touchdown pass. How do you let that happen? I'm going nuts. To Richie and the play, so everything's going the Chargers' way, and to their credit, Richie and the players, we could have played for a tie. Right, and I think we had a 3rd and I want to say 7 or 8, and right around midfield somewhere, and that was the point where they called a timeout, I think, which I still don't understand, and gave us some extra time to think about how and what to do. But anyway, Josh Jacobs, who is a bad motherfucker, ripped off about a 10 or 12-yard run, and now we're thinking, 100%. Let's kick a field goal. We got Daniel Carlson, who's as good as there is in the game. And sure enough, Daniel Carlson was money, and we win the game. Pittsburgh's in, because Mike Tomlin and Kevin Colbert texted me after the game.
They did.
Big thank yous. I think Tomlin even sent us like a chocolate thing or something.
He didn't send you black Air Force Ones?
No.
He gave his whole team?
No, but I did find out that his son's playing at Boston College.
Okay,
which
cool.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
But so to Richie's credit and Greg Olson's credit and that staff's credit, they played for the win, and it knocked out a couple. It got Pittsburgh in, and it sent us to Cincinnati.
Yeah, that was a wild game. I wanted to ask you. I asked Steve Keim this recently. I said, was there a team or a GM that when they called you around the draft, you were like, hold on a minute, this can't be good for me because this guy's really good?
Well, Howie Roseman's got the rep of needing or wanting to win every trade, right?
Yeah.
Now I live in Philly. I know Howie pretty damn well, and
Yeah.
I have a ton of respect. This is a
Yeah.
guy that grew up not on the football side of the building, but more on the financial side.
Yeah.
He's smart. He's smart as hell. He's smart. I know he's way smarter than me. Like Chris Long's smarter than me. Howie Long's. Everybody's smarter than me. I got to outwork people to have half a chance, and I know
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And then you look at Howie Roseman, and he's brilliant. And to Howie's credit, I think he had a little chip on his shoulder where he had to win every deal to show he was a football guy.
Mm-hmm.
I think Howie's grown into the role, and he's really good. And right at my last year at the trading deadline, we went back and forth on a couple things.
Yeah.
With some Eagle players and he's really good, and you have to be careful. But I think he's at a point where everybody wants to win a deal, but if he can get a deal that helps himself and maybe the other side's happy too, it's okay.
How's his bedside manner? Does he call and does he butter you up and hey, how's your family? Or does he cut right to? And then how's Bill? Like, has Bill ever called you for a trade? And is Bill is it like 5 words and then off the phone?
Well, I played for Bill.
Yeah.
So I've known Bill since 1982.
Yeah.
When I was a rookie with the Giants, and he was the special teams coach. And really the reason I made the team was because he liked me. So we've been friends for a lot of years. So we could talk.
Yeah.
But Bill's tough, man. Bill's tough. Bill's always looking for an edge. And over the years, he's gotten it and he's earned it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie to you. If you answer the phone and Bill wants to talk a trade, you want to talk about puking in your mouth. There was some of that. There was some of that for me too.
Yeah, I bet.
Because this is like the all-time guy and guy I always looked up to, and I'm like, holy shit, he'll take my pants down in a heartbeat.
He wants to play one-on-one.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, that's scary. But,
the way Howie comes at you is Howie's smart. He's always touching base. Like during training camp, hey man, how you doing, man? Listen, I just want to I want to do a deal with you this year, man. I just want to do a deal with you. What do you think, man? What are we gonna do, man? Yeah, let's do a deal. Like somehow we got to figure out a way to make a deal, man. And then he'll call back, so that's in training. And all GMs all talk prior to the 53-man cuts and stuff. Like you're trying to get something for nothing, and you're going to cut a guy. You're trying to get a 7th-round pick or something, and so you're always talking. And then during the season, hey man, I'm just checking in. How you doing, man? Yeah, trade deadline coming up in a few weeks, man. You got anything? Want to talk? That's Howie, and I love him.
It's a different flavor for sure than Bill. That's so fucking funny. I mean, it's actually a pretty good impression. I mean, it's pretty damn good. It's like you've been on the phone with him a bunch.
I'm not good at that shit. But
that's pretty good though. What do you think about the way the media gets involved here? Like, you've been on the media side of things. You've been a GM. Like CJ Stroud's going through right now where people are kind of like, not to give you all the context, I know you're not paying that close attention, but, there's some negative. Yeah, he missed the Manning passing camp. There's questions about this. You see it every year, and I know that there's play behind the scenes with teams and certain media members. Do you think it's right that they should be able to do this? And then, how does that usually go down?
Yeah, I mean, the way it goes down is that the media, the information guys, Schefter, Rappaport, there's a whole bunch of them now. Their stock in trade is to trade information. Hey, I heard this. What do you got? Right? And because as a GM, you have 2 choices. You can either play the game or not.
Right.
And I knew the game inside out because of coming from the media, and I chose not to play it.
Yeah.
And so I didn't use those guys to get information out. I didn't. Yeah. I barely even talked to those guys. A lot of GMs and head coaches, and I'm not saying it's wrong. As a matter of fact, it's probably smart to use somebody else to get a message out.
Yeah.
Right. Especially with trades and guys moving up or down or whatever. So yeah, they're there's a lot of people that are putting information out there for their own vested interest. I texted Daniel Jeremiah yesterday, who I'm really good friends with. He
I
worked for
love
3
DJ.
NFL teams, and I think
Great
he's the
guy.
best draft analyst out there.
He's terrific.
Okay, I think he's terrific. I agree.
Yeah.
And I just texted him yesterday, good luck and whatever. And I was like, get a workout in, blah blah blah. And I said, and listen, just don't listen to anybody because they're all lying. Don't worry about chasing ghosts. It's too late. You've already done all the work. Everybody's lying. Get a workout, get a sleep, and just be fresh because everybody's bullshitting you right now anyway. And they are. It's all bullshit right now. And CJ Stroud will probably end up going 2 or 3 anyway.
Yeah, I figure that's how it probably shakes out.
Yeah.
My last thing here, every year there's these combine questions that come out that they're really asking these people this stuff. There's one I need an answer to though. When you guys are asking guys if they're a dog or a cat, can we talk this out here, Mike? What are you looking for? Do you looking for the dog or the cat, and why?
First of all, I never asked that freaking question. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, I don't know because there's an answer. I think I think there's a right answer.
Well, if I can go back to my 1981 draft when I went in the 10th round.
Yeah.
No, and if somebody asked me that when I was 21 or 22 years old, I probably would have just said I'm a dog because I want to go after the people and I don't want to be a passive cat sitting in the corner.
Yeah. Well, I know, but that's a misconception about cats. They're aggressive as fuck. They also don't answer to anybody, which is scary for a coach and a GM if a guy says he's a cat. But I feel like a cat guy, he's more of a dog. A dog ultimately is following marching orders. He's a good soldier. Maybe it depends on the position.
So are you telling me that you're a cat guy?
I don't like cats, but I might be more of a cat than a dog. Yeah, well,
I don't.
You see, there we go. See, we're in the meeting. This is good. Tell me this. Okay, tell me this. I've never gotten a my wife hates cats. I've never gotten a GM to tell me this, but when I visited the Chiefs in Indianapolis, they had those train cars and those fucking hotel rooms down there. And I remember going in the Chiefs meeting, and Herm Edwards was the coach. And, like in the back, there was a bathroom, and it was just a room, and they had like a projector, and I was going through all the stuff, answering the questions, watching film. The whole time, Herm Edwards is in the bathroom, and this is your guy, right, Herm? He seems cool as shit. But he's sitting in a chair just facing the wall. Like, not me, he's kind of listening, but he's not in the meeting. I don't know if it was to mind fuck me or what, or if he just didn't think I was going to be there at 6. But, what was he doing, do you think?
Wait a minute. He was in the bathroom?
He was in the bathroom.
And the door was open?
Door's open. He's in khakis and a polo, and he's sitting in his fucking chair like he's in detention, and he's just kind of, looking off. He might look in the room every now and again. I've just never gotten a chance to ask Herm. I'm going to ask him one day. But do you think he was just he's not going to be here at 6, or was it just to see how I would react to him not paying attention to what I was saying? Is that a tactic you guys do?
I'm not smart enough to think up tactics. I'm not. I'm going in a room, and I want to look you in your eye. I want to see how you respond to some tape. I want to see if I challenge you about some shit that happened to you at UVA, or but.
So you didn't have a general litmus test question, dog or cat, something outside the box.
Nah.
If you had one question you had to ask a kid to figure out what he was about, had nothing to do with football, what are you asking him?
For the most part, Chris, you're in a time-constrained situation, unless it's a 30 visit where you spend the whole day, right? So if you're at the combine, basically you got 15 minutes with a guy.
Yeah.
Plus or minus depending on the situation. And if we had outstanding questions that needed to be answered from a scouting side,
you're not going to skip those.
I would start the meeting with every guy And sometimes I didn't have any questions.
Yeah.
Sometimes I had 2 or 3 questions from background stuff that I wanted answered. Like, this is what we heard. You got arrested. You did this. You did that. I'll put them on the spot for behavior that we're aware of, and I want cleaned up.
Yeah.
Right? And then I'd give it to Jon and the coaches.
Yeah.
Because we already knew the scouts already were 95% down the road with it. But at the combine, it's the first time the coaches are getting involved with players.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like I wanted to clean up any shit that needed to be cleaned up or highlight something I wanted the coaches to hear. And then I throw it to Jon, and he took over. I didn't, everybody hears about all that shit. Again, I probably just wasn't smart enough to put you on the spot.
Or goofy enough. There's just some goofy questions I was hearing every year. I'm glad you weren't asking them. So I'll leave you with this. This is the question that we would ask you if you were interviewing to work at Greenlight. Mike Mayock is a very important question. We've debated it a lot over the years here. You know lemon lime Gatorade? What color is that Gatorade?
What?
What color is a lemon lime Gatorade, Mike?
It's like urine yellow.
Fuck. I don't know. He's off our board. It's green. It's green, Mike. It's
not
green.
The original lemon lime Gatorade that came out in 1970 something.
All right. I got certain producers say yellow, certain to say green. We had this whole debate that it's still raging right now. But you know what? You failed that part of the interview. But the rest of the interview was great. I appreciate you. It's good to catch up with you, man. You look well, and hopefully we get a beer soon, dude.
I would love that, and you need to say hi to all the Longs for me, okay?
I will.
Everybody.
Yeah.
You know how much I love your mom and dad, and please make sure they know that, okay?
Yeah, I sure will. See you in Ocean City, buddy.
You got it. Thanks, Chris.
Listen to the full podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and other podcast streaming platforms. Wherever you want to get the podcast, you can get the podcast. Pretty simple. New episodes every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more content. Podcasts get pretty wild. This is real tame.